Okay, I think it's time for an update on the CS market. So, let's take a look at one of the more traded knives on the Steam market. So, everyone expected a big crash on the 30th October, but we can clearly see that the opposite happened. And wait, let's take a look at the weekly graph and start painting a bit. So, first we saw not really a dip on this one, but we saw that the price went up like a lot, let's say that. And my prediction was that the 30th October is not the best day to buy. That was my prediction. And I didn't expect that many people waiting to buy knives. I knew that there is, like, let's say, can I draw like here? Yeah, okay. So let's say we have group 1. They want to buy. And we have group 2. And they want to sell. I thought group 2 and 1 are pretty much the same size, roughly around that. I thought there are more people that want to buy than sell, but not like 10 times more people wanting to buy than to sell. So I thought that we will see an increase on the first day, like we saw, but I thought that if we are starting at like 166, I thought that the increase would look like this, and then it would go down. Why? Because we get to the next day, and let's say that's the chart of the people that wanted to buy on the first day. Then this amount of people got their knife on the first day. So on the second day, the 31 October, this group is only half the size. So the seller group was the biggest on the first day, obviously, and they sold this amount of knives. But on the second day, we have the group from the first day that still want to sell, plus an increase, plus an increase from people that got their knives on the second day of the new update. So this group is getting bigger. This one is only getting smaller over the time. So my prediction was that we see a big increase or a decent increase on the first day because a lot of people want to buy. And on the second day and going forward, we see a decrease in the price because more and more people get their knives ready to sell and want to sell. So this group here is getting bigger and this group here is getting smaller over time. So my prediction was that we are seeing an increase and then we're seeing a decrease, and it would look something like this over time. Why like this? Because every time the morning hits, people get their trades unlocked or their items unlocked. Let's take a look at this knife for example. We can see that at 9 a.m. here, that's a good example. Every time at 9 a.m. in this time zone, the knives get unlocked. So we see 1, 2 knives got sold, and then at 9 a.m. 8 sold, 10 sold, 6 sold. So we see a big increase in supply at 9 a.m. each morning. Why is that? Because the group here, the group that wants to sell, gets a new supply every time at 9 a.m. So the price should dip at that point, but we don't see that on the first day. Or at some examples, we see a small dip, but then we see a huge increase because everyone thinks now is the time to buy. So at 9 a.m., people are buying like crazy on the first day. But let's take a look on the second day. Here we see roughly a constant price. And at 9 a.m. we see a dip. Why? Because the supply is getting bigger and people start buying again. So the next day we are at 250 and we see a new supply coming in and we see a decrease in the price. So let's take a look at this, for example. Here we can see the same. This is the 30th October. People were waiting to buy. we see that the knives get unlocked and we see already a small drop. Then we see from 1 to 2 swords per hour, 25 sword, 18 sword, 7 sword. We see a big increase in supply and people are buying like crazy because they see that there is no dip and they think I have to buy now or else we will see a price of like 440 again. So people are buying like crazy because they still want, like, 250 is still a decent price for a knife that was 450. It's still close to 50% off. So people were buying like crazy on the Thursday. And on the second day, we already saw a decrease in price. And then we see it stabilizing a bit. Because this group is only getting bigger, this one is only getting smaller. But that is only for the first 1 or 2 weeks, I think. Then we will see a big decrease in supply because let's take a look at prices for trade-ups. Obviously, we see a huge increase. People were buying like crazy to do trade-ups. But we can already see that on the next day, there was another pump. Like people were pumping again and again. And people were buying and buying and doing trade-ups. So we can see each day there's a huge amount of people doing trade-ups. Not obviously as big as the first day, but there are still a lot of people doing trade-ups. And now we are getting interested. Here is where the crash was expected. We can see a crash and a huge increase in sales. Why? Because people were trading up classified skins to covert skins. And these got ready to sell. So people sold a lot of skins for trade ups because they did a trade up a tier lower. That's why we see a decrease in price. And now we see a huge increase in price. We see from 40 euros around, here's also 40, up to a peak of 85 euros in like 2 days. Why is that? People were skeptical if prices are crashing because the trade-ups are not worth it to do for like, now the trade-up is like 400 euros for one trade-up to get one knife. It's not worth it to do a 400 euros trade-up if all the skins are worthless. So people were waiting to see if there is a crash. And there was no crash. So people are now feeling comfortable or feeling the security to do more trade-ups and pumping the price back up. So we will see another big supply coming in like exactly 5 days, 5 or 6 days, around that. And my theory is that where can I draw? Let's just draw here. My theory is that will see a decrease like this, like a bit going over here, or we will see a small decrease, and in 1 week or in 5 days from now on, we will see another dip. Why? Because all the people that felt comfortable now with doing more trade-ups, because we can see here from 90 to 100 to nearly 2,000 sold in like 1 hour. There's a lot of new trade-ups made 1 week after the update because people were secure now that they can still sell their knives for a lot of money. So that's why I think that we will see a decline in price over time because more and more people will sell their knives and get a supply in, and less people are willing to buy new knives because they already bought their knives that they wanted. And then there is this huge supply coming in of, wait, here for example, here's the same thing with another skin, like waiting for the update and then bam, going up like crazy. People in 1 week have a new big supply incoming in skins and knives, so they want to drop them as well. So everyone who wants to buy a knife has already bought their knife until then, and everyone who wanted to invest a big amount of money probably has already invested that money. So the amount of people who want to buy knives is going to be pretty low, very low compared to the 30th October. And we will see a big jump in supply. So that's why I think the 5th November, I think 5th or 6th November should it be, it's going to be the day where we see a big jump down with the prices. But I have to say, I don't think that we will see prices like on the first day. For example, we have here a survival knife fade that went from 300 down to 150. Then it went up to 300 again. That's crazy. That's really crazy. And then we can see the same thing here. It went up, people were FOMOing, wanting to buy, and then we see the big increase in new supply because the second wave of trade bans was over. So the price went down, and we see it going up again because people wanted to buy again. Then we see the next supply coming in, and it's going a bit down again. So I think that we will see a price drop again next week or in 5 to 6 days, going maybe to here. I think that's a reasonable amount, or maybe something like here, something in between here. So still a very good time to buy, and a better time than now, because now we have a price around here. But after the 2 weeks are over, so if 2 weeks are over, I think we will go back to normal again. We will see old prices again, because the supply that is coming in is not that huge compared to the demand. And I know a lot of people who never owned a knife now bought their first knife, and the moment you start buying your first knife, you will probably buy a second knife soon, so you have one for CT and T side, and then you want matching gloves. And people who start buying knives usually start buying more than one knife. And I know a lot of people started to buy the first knife on this dip, for example, or around here. So I think we will go back to old prices. I also have to say that I said in my last video that it's really important that China is coming back to get the old prices back again, because China is the reason that we have prices like these. For example, if we look at lifetime, okay, this one is a bad example. Let's take a look at something else. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, this one is a new knife, that doesn't count. Let's take a look at these gloves. 2020 they were around 600. Then before the update they were like close to 3 times the price. China was pumping prices up like crazy. And one thing that I have to say also, I don't think that we will see a decrease in price for high tier gloves. For example, like these gloves in minimal wear are very difficult to craft, so I don't think that there is a big increase in supply for these kind of items. Some items are really easy to craft, for example, Sports Glove Omega and Field Tested. They will probably decrease in price for the next 1 or 2 weeks, but in minimal wear, that's really difficult to craft, and in factory new, it's basically impossible, or it's insanely hard. So the price drop is not going to happen for minimal wear, and definitely not going to happen in factory new. We are talking about items that are probably more easy to craft, that will see a decrease again in price. That's why we see in these gloves, for example, there's no dip. These go up like this. And we can see that in other high tier gloves and knives as well that are hard to craft, they didn't dip again. If we take a look at this one, for example, we see another dip. So there's a way bigger supply coming in for these items, so that's why they're dipping. Also, very interesting to take a look at are low tier knives, like knives that no one really wants to play, let's be real. I thought that these knives are the worst knives to get, and many people thought that. Why? Because these are like the trash from trade ups. People who do trade ups want to get high tier golds. They don't want to get this stuff. So this is garbage that is going to be dumped on the market to re-afford to buy new trade ups. But interestingly, these knives got the biggest rebound, or they are back to normal prices basically. We can see here that this was a €100 knife, 90 to 110. That peaked back to basically old prices, and we see that with multiple of these low tier knives. For example, Nava Jarasco, that's a disgusting knife. I thought this one is going to die in price, like going down to like €30. But no, they rebalanced pretty good. Like here we see old prices used to be around 80 euros, 80 to 90, and it peaked on Halloween to 75 euros again. So we see they are actually pretty decent recovering. That's something very interesting. And I also want to take a look at cases, because I said a few days ago that cases are going to go back up because people are opening cases like crazy, and yeah. So I was right. The cases went up like crazy, and I think we will see a bigger income, or we will see even more increase in prices in cases. So if you're unsure what to buy and you don't want to risk it with my theory here, because that is just my guess, it's not 100% obviously, it's like a 50-50 guess. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. But with cases, I'm pretty, like, in cases I'm 90% sure that they're going up over the old Markov here. I would say they will probably go up to like 2 euros in the next few weeks. This case, for example. But this year, it's like 50-50, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It really depends on how many people are willing to buy. We see that China returned to the market, and China is buying knives like crazy. So that's a big indicator that this group here is maybe going to increase even more with the time. So it's hard to tell. It's really hard to make a guess how big this group is right now and is going over the next few days. This one is easy to tell. This one is going up, but this one is hard to tell. I would assume that this one is going down over the next few days. That's why we see a small dip again in most knives from the peaks, but it's hard to tell, and you have to decide what you want to guess. And thanks for watching. It's a 70 minute, holy shit, that was 70 minutes. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts, and I set myself the goal to hit 1000 subscribers to the end of the year. So if you want to help me, then leave a subscription. And if we hit the 1000 subscribers, I'm going to do a celebration stream with a sweet trade up that I prepared. So yeah,